Okay, I would like to conduct an experiment. If the experiment turns out well, I'm going to post it online. If the experiment fails, nobody will know about it. So we have a case that is near completion. There still remains a little bit of an edge to edge. The patient started with some anterior wear, and I would like to have a little bit more overjet, just something like that. And so to achieve that, two things are happening in this clincheck. The upper anteriors are slightly moving forward because we have a flattened arch form. So it's rounding out. I'm okay with that. But also the lower teeth are moving in a little, as you can see, and that requires interproximal reduction, and I'm okay with that. I want you to notice the amount of interproximal reduction. Now we have dark triangles. The teeth are very amenable to this, but we're only talking about a total of 1 millimeter. Consequently, the movement of these teeth, lingual, is only going to be about 1 millimeter. But what I noticed is that the clincheck has these teeth moving lingual in a bodily manner, meaning that the roots are moving back at the same as the crown. You can see that when you look. Let me take off the IPR for a second. You can see it better. You can see this as the teeth move back. You see how they're moving back at the gingival margin, the same degree as the incisal edge. Now, that bodily movement or minimizing tipping is desirable if you have a case that has a lot of space, say an extraction space, or if the patient had lots of spaces between the teeth naturally at the beginning of a treatment and you wanted to tip them back a long way, you'd be limited because you don't want to tilt teeth back that much. You don't want them to end up leaning back. But in this case, we only have 1 millimeter. And what I specifically want to see here, not only is that a harder movement to achieve because there's more resistance, the root is up against the lingual cortical plate, and you're applying a force on a flat, short tooth here. So it's hard to achieve the force here to act at a distance here to pull off and achieve that lingual root torque, which is what's required for bodily movement in this case. But what I really want to see, if you remember, and I'm going to remind you right now, the degree of the overjet that you see right now is just barely enough for me. But that would mean that we would have to move those lower teeth the way you see on the clincheck, which I explained is difficult to do. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to modify the clincheck and I'm going to remove the lingual root torque and I'm going to make it tip. I'm okay with tipping when it's a very small amount. Let me blow this up bigger. All right, so here's the root torque. I'm removing the root torque that's in the clincheck. I'm just eyeballing it. I'm going to check this in a second. And what I want to see is, will this have an effect virtually on the amount of overjet? Okay, so now you can see. Do you see how the incisal edges are moving back? That's the way the teeth are most likely going to move. Let's look at it here. You see that tipping movement? Now, and by the way, when they tip, there's an effective lifting of those teeth, which will give me a little bit of overbite, which I want. Now let's see if it's any different. Okay. Well, I would say it's about the same. But I'm going to push this a little further. Even if it's the same, that movement I programmed is a lot easier. But the uppers also look like they are advancing with that same bodily movement. Look at the gingival margin. So let's make the same adjustment here. I want to know how these teeth are actually going to be. This video is basically explaining that sometimes you want to build a clincheck the way your experience as a practitioner tells you the teeth are going to move, rather than what is sort of more idealistic. Okay, so now you see how, let's see, I think the incisal edges are moving a little bit more now than they were before. Oh, wrong way. Got to go to the root torque. I want to neutralize the root movement, basically, and I want to get the crown to move out because it's only a very small amount. Okay, there you can see that is definitely, the way you can tell it's tipping is if you look, you can see how from this view, you can see the buccal gingival margin of the centrals, and now you lose some of it. Let's see how this looks now. All right, look at this. This is definitely more overjet. And what is the significance of that? Well, I'll tell you what it is. I can decrease the IPR a little bit. They're not worried about the dark triangle. I might even remove this contact here. I still am looking good. Let's look at the upper to make sure that it's not out too much. That looks nice. And now I'm going to reduce this. I like doing 0.2. By the way, if you use lightning strips instead of a disc, it's hard to get 0.3. Okay. Also, to push this further, that contact is not super amenable. All right, first of all, I do not need to extrude that canine. That's a harder contact to IPR. I'm going to not IPR there. I'm going to do more here because look how wide open it is. And I think I will leave those. All right, let's see. Well, this looks good. If the patient is not concerned about the dark triangles, let's see what happens if I remove the IPR completely. All right, now will they move lingually without the IPR? Let's see. All right, well, somehow, look at the, I don't want those roots moving. That actually has buccal root torque, which I don't want either. So let's correct for that. I told you I want the roots to be in the same position. That's just a little bit from the rotation. Now you don't see the roots moving palatally at all. Let's see where we are. All right, that's good. And I might revert back and I'm going to put the IPR in this one contact. I'm going to leave the others. And now I have totally changed. Maybe the patient doesn't want IPR. I minimized the IPR because I moved the teeth in the way they're going to tend to move anyway, and it changed the dynamic of the case. I hope this helps.